So it was interesting to watch because technically this is about Australian politics again. So hi everyone. Here's something that was interesting to observe. Wasn't aware of this before, but Peter Dutton was, believe it or not, the member for Fisher. Um, Quite possibly he could have been in the electorate north of there, but just barely because the Sunshine Coast hinterland is a pretty big place. Um, but if he was a member for Fisher, that would be a really interesting thing, considering if anyone remembers Julia Gillard's misogyny speech, it was prompted by a less than appropriate response by Tony Abbott in relation to the Peter Slipper case, who at the time was the member for Fisher and taken a dual role as a Speaker of the House of Representatives. And so the question that they were asking, or the motion that they were putting to the Parliament at that particular time, which is about 2012 or 2013, whenever that was should Peter Slipper lose his role as the Speaker of the House? The guy with the gavel that says "shut up" it's someone else's turn, or whatever. And Julia Gillard was opposed to that because the court case against Mr. Slipper hadn't been completed yet. And so Tony Abbott turned around and accused her of sexism. And so Julia Gillard's responded with the misogyny speech. So there's a lot of content in it about how Tony Abbott had continuously supported Peter Slipper through numerous pre-selections and his long history associated with the Slipper electorate, which, by the way, did end after the court case. It is possible that at some point, because it has been a long time since 2012, 2013. I mean, it's been 12 years. Peter Dutton seems to be recent on the scene. He might have been in. I don't actually personally know his history as a politician. His name only came up watching Juice Media in the last couple of months. But apparently he was the opposition leader for the LNP coalition in the previous 4 years of the first Albanese government in Canberra. So that's really interesting. And apparently he was an ex-cop, and he might have been the member for the Fisher electorate. So it sounds like the Fisher electorate is a place that seems to have this concentration of misogynistic and homophobic content historically, as well as a bit of being a trigger for a bit of misogyny, or actually having a bit of misogyny, and may have been a historical hotbed for alt-right pipeline type activity as well. So the Fisher electorate, or just north of there, which might cover probably not Buderim, probably Gympie or something like that. It might be further north, like Nambour or Gympie or something like that, than the Fisher electorate. It depends on if he was Fisher electorate, or the one north of that. It's difficult to tell. It was quite amazing that could have been the case. It'd be quite an interesting coincidence if it were. Anyway, that Sunshine Coast hinterland is an interesting place because about 3 or 4 years ago, the AFP arrested 2 people who were acting as Russian spies in Brisbane. Additionally to that, there is the Noosa/Buderim Satanic Temple, and there are numerous groups up there that are associated with different forms of alt-right type behaviour. And so in the federal investigation that was launched 2 years ago into fake foundations and charities, also, interestingly enough, might affect the electorate of Fisher. And so there is a strong motive for people in that area to create the appearance that they are not MAGA, and that they are in fact, an exception to the rule when it comes to Queensland, because it seems like basically all 14 of the LNP coalition persons that got elected, well, actually it was more than 14, it was 20-something, but 14 out of 20-something is quite a fair bit. came from Queensland and not from Fisher Electorate. So, and Dutto lost his seat. So that's really an interesting turn of events. It sounds like the Fisher Electorate is trying to shake off the image that it is a Joe Bjelke-Petersen loving hellhole, and is instead a place that favours the working class, which couldn't be further from the truth. It is actually a place that is renowned for cult behaviour. It's renowned for neo-Nazi activity, is also renowned for satanic activity, and is also most likely being investigated because of the fake foundations and charities and trusts that they've got running up there as tax breaks. So it would be interesting here if the 2 Russian spies that were found in Brisbane had anything to do with the Sunshine Coast hinterland more generally, and the Fisher Electorate. It would be interesting to find out if the Russians have been influencing conservative politics in Australia more generally as well as a consequence of that, and how far back it goes. After all, they're claiming at the moment that Donald Trump has been known as Agent Krasnov since 1987. So it may be the case that some, but not all, groups in that area are politically aligned with alt-right or with groups with fascistic tendencies, to which Vladimir Putin is classified under normal definitions of political leadership to be a fascist leader or a fascist dictator. Having actually killed opponents before. There's been recent reports of his generals somehow going missing, and they just happen to be the ones that were opposing him. So whether or not that's Western media propaganda to try and make out like the Western media wasn't bought by BlackRock and isn't promoting or peddling the alt-right's agenda or not, we don't actually know. But ultimately, that's sort of, it's not them, it's the other guy game continues. And Fisher Electorate, by the way, is probably where Joe Bjelke-Petersen fucking came from. Actually, it's not. But you Yanks don't know that, do you? Have a nice day. Do your homework.